Hi everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I am making an exciting new Thanksgiving recipe, something that I'm gonna incorporate into my own Thanksgiving this year. It is a savory sweet potato dinner roll, and I'm so excited about this recipe because I love sweet potatoes, I love dinner rolls, but I don't feel like they need to be separate things at Thanksgiving. There's already like so many carbs around the table. This kind of mashes them together. I add a bunch of rosemary. They're like super buttery and soft and just makes like an ideal accompaniment to everything at Thanksgiving. So I'm gonna show you how to make it. I have thought an inappropriate amount about Thanksgiving and menu. And I've become a little bit ruthless of like cutting dishes. It's like, do we really need this? I don't think so. Although often what happens is I cut a dish and my family, like everyone lobbies to like bring it back in. So I haven't always been successful. But the point is, I really only want the things that I love to eat on the table. And this dish is my way of getting ingredients that I really like sweet potato, and I want like a roll, which is also, by the way, perfect for like a sandwich the next day. So this takes what I love about them and mashes them together. And also the combination of butter and sweet potato and herbs is just already like super, super delicious. So I'm like a little bit patting myself on the back because I think it's such a good way to bring in classic Thanksgiving ingredients in one incredibly delicious dish. So much of Thanksgiving cooking is about optimizing for leftovers, and this is gonna help you do that because then you're gonna have these like perfect little dinner rolls for making your next day turkey sandwich, which is kind of the best part of Thanksgiving food. Ingredients, very straightforward, probably all stuff you already have in your kitchen if you're cooking Thanksgiving. I have a sweet potato, a medium sweet potato, around 8 ounces. Let's say actually maybe a small to medium sweet potato, about 8 ounces. Some fresh rosemary, all-purpose flour, sugar, yeast, kosher salt. I have 3 eggs. 2 are gonna go into the dough, 1 is for egg wash. 11 tablespoons of butter, which gets used in a few different places, and sour cream. So in terms of special equipment, you'll need a stand mixer. It's just a little bit of an annoying dough to make by hand. Once it's done, it's pretty easy to handle, except the mixing happens in a couple stages. So it's just like 1,000 times easier in a stand mixer with the hook attachment. And then you'll need a small saucepan because you're gonna actually cook a couple different things that are gonna go into the dough. And then for baking, you'll need a large skillet or a 13x9 pan, whatever it is, just a quality bakeware, cookware. Before we get into the recipe, I want to thank our partners at Made In for sponsoring this episode. If you've been watching Dessert Person, you've seen me use a lot of their cookware and bakeware. Today I'm going to use a couple of pieces from their stainless Clad line. It's made in Italy. It uses 5-ply construction, which means you get like super even heating and cooking. I really love the Stay Cool handle, which makes it like super easy to use. They are oven safe up to 800 degrees, which is incredibly impressive. And I'm going to use it to put together the dough for the rolls. And it's just like so versatile. Makes a fantastic gift for the holidays. I use the stainless Clad line pretty much daily in my own kitchen, from the small saucepan to the large skillet. You can sear. They all come with lids, so you can have a kind of like roasting effect. They're amazing for braises. I use the stock pot a lot. I also love the new saucier, which like you can sort of like toss in and out of. It's just a super versatile line. So I'm gonna use a couple of these pieces now to put together my rolls. Let's get into the recipe. So I have a recipe in Dessert Person for a flatbread that incorporates cooked potato into the dough. So this whole like sweet potato dinner roll idea, it's not just about flavor. It actually is like a super functional thing to incorporate potato into bread dough. It makes dough that's incredibly soft and pillowy. So it's like, it just kind of checks every box. It improves the flavor, it improves the texture. It's just a really nice dough to work with. So the first thing I have to do is actually cook the potato. It's a little more than 8 ounces, but I want about 8 ounces peeled and chopped. So I'm just peeling this guy.
Is Rocky out or something? Or Randy? What's his name?
Ringo. Archie. All right. Sorry. So I want to cut this into kind of 1-inch pieces. The size isn't so important. What's more important is just that they're uniform so that they cook evenly.
Archie, we're on a timeout.
Archie. Shut up. So the pieces are gonna go into my small saucepan. And then I'm going to just cover it with a little bit of water. You don't have to cover it by a lot, just even like barely covering it, or even a 1/4 inch of water is all you need. And it's not a very big sweet potato, so everything fits in one layer. So I'm gonna bring that up to a boil and then simmer it pretty vigorously until the sweet potato is really tender. And I like to test with a fork, because sometimes if you test with a knife is super sharp and it's gonna slide in pretty easily. A fork is just a better way of knowing that it's like actually tender. If it's even a little bit crunchy, it won't incorporate very easily into the dough. So I'm gonna let that go. And in the meantime, I'm gonna chop some rosemary, and I want 2 tablespoons chopped. So that actually ends up being like more leaves than you would imagine. This needs to get cooked first because rosemary is really hardy and the leaves can be just really tough and like a little bit woody. So cooking not only brings out the flavor, it kind of fries the leaves, which make them a little more crisp. This has to get cooked in stages. I'm gonna use that same saucepan after the potato is done to cook the rosemary in a little butter. So the sweet potato should really be almost falling apart. So when you stick a fork in, you should be able to like easily break apart the pieces without having to apply really any force at all. So it's gonna take like 15 or 20 minutes. And in preparation of that point, I'm going to prep for a really important step in this recipe, which is a version of something I've done a lot when I make bread, which is you make this kind of mixture of like cooked flour and the liquid in the recipe. So if you watched my sour cream and chive rolls, I do this something very similar, where sometimes you like cook it as a roux in the pan, but basically what I'm gonna do is take some of the water from the sweet potato and pour that boiling over a little bit of the flour from the recipe. So I have 3.5 cups total of all-purpose flour. A 1/2 cup of that is gonna go into my mixing bowl, just right at this point. So I have just that 1/2 cup of flour in the bottom. And I'm gonna go over to the stove. The sweet potato is just about done. I'm gonna take that out and I'm gonna pour a 1/2 cup of that boiling water over my flour and mix it all together. It's called a udon. It's actually taken from Japanese baking. It's a Japanese technique. Basically pouring boiling water over a portion of the flour in the recipe, it creates this mixture that is like a dough enhancer. So it's going to increase the capacity of the dough to hold onto moisture. So you're gonna get something like super soft and pillowy. It's just kind of like a genius technique and it works so well and it's really easy. I'll show you what the sweet potato looks like when it's done. Really, you can't overcook it because you wanna make sure it's soft enough that it can just sort of naturally like blend in to the dough. So it's just like super tender, and when I kind of even apply a little bit of pressure, it breaks apart.
Oh yeah.
Super soft. I'm going to remove this from the water with a slotted spoon, leaving the water in. And you can leave it on the heat because I want that water to be boiling. Okay, then that can just be set aside. Then I have that 1/2 cup of flour in my mixing bowl. I am going to measure out a 1/2 cup of the boiling water, which I might have just about a 1/2 cup, a little over. But any remaining water you just dump out because we're gonna reuse this saucepan. And now I'm gonna pour this boiling water that has all the starch and flavor from the sweet potato over the flour inside my mixing bowl. This is gonna form into a relatively stiff dough, so I'm gonna use a spatula just to work it all together. I have this kind of like pasty dough. This is just gonna hang out in the bowl. I can put this back over near my mixer. While my potato is cooling, I'm gonna take this opportunity to use the same saucepan. You don't have to even like wash it out. And I'm gonna start to cook my rosemary. So the butter quantities, it seems like a lot of butter for the recipe, and it is because it's supposed to be buttery, but it gets used in a bunch of different places. So I'm gonna take 2 tablespoons of the total 11, get them in my saucepan, and I'm gonna cook this over medium heat. The saucepan is still warm from the sweet potato. And I'm just gonna basically like fry the rosemary in that butter. I want it to soften, it's gonna become super fragrant. Just want all of that.
Wow, best smell ever.
Right?
Whoa.
This is like particularly green. I mean, this is from outside. I picked it last night. It's very green rosemary. This will just take maybe 2 minutes. I have it on, I would say my heat's medium high actually. This is looking and smelling so good. You know it's almost done when the all that bubbling butter, kind of that foaming like starts to subside a little bit. And what's really good is if you cook it to the point where the butter turns golden brown, then all those milk solids have caramelized and you get just like the most incredible flavor. So I'm just about there. I'm gonna take it off the heat. Then I'm gonna bring everything over to my stand mixer so we can put together the dough. I wish he was like a dog, I can give him a bone.
Okay, go to sleep.
Okay. Here I have everything I need now to assemble my dough. I have that boiling water and flour mixture that's in the bottom of my mixing bowl. It's mostly cooled. So now I want to add my sweet potato, which has also cooled. It's okay for your sweet potato and that rosemary butter mixture to be warm. You just don't want it to be super hot. So just a couple minutes of cooling is all you really need. I'm going to scrape in that rosemary mixture. So now I'm actually done with that small saucepan. That can go away. And I'm going to add the rest of my ingredients. I have a half a cup of sour cream. This is room temp. This is kind of like borrowing from the sour cream and chive rolls. The sour cream gives it a little tang. It also tenderizes the dough and gives it that kind of just like lactic dairy flavor that I really love. I'm going to crack in my eggs. I have 2 eggs. These are also room temp. 2 large eggs. Just straight in to the bowl. I think people are super intimidated by yeasted doughs in general. And yeah, there's like some experience that comes in handy when it comes to the rises and kind of judging the proof. But in terms of mixing the dough, it's so easy. It's just like everything goes into the same bowl and gets stirred together. So I will encourage people to try it if they haven't already. Then 2 tablespoons of sugar. The sugar is there kind of as a flavor enhancer. So that goes in. Then I'm going to add my 3 remaining cups of all-purpose flour. I use King Arthur all-purpose, which has a relatively high protein content, so you could also use bread flour if that's what you have. But if you have another brand of all-purpose, that will work fine too. So that's going to go in. Then on top of that, my yeast. This is 1.5 teaspoons of instant yeast. You can also use active dry. That's totally fine. Just make sure it's relatively fresh. And then my salt, kosher salt. So that's going to go in. Just going to clean off my spatula. So I've basically added all of the remaining ingredients except for the butter and that 1 egg that I held. Now this is going to go into my stand mixer and I'm going to turn it on, and all of those ingredients that like look so crazy combined in the bowl are going to come together into this really beautiful dough. I'm going to start it on low. I'm also going to grab a little bit of extra flour. So the recipe is designed to sort of that you add just enough flour to make a really smooth, supple dough that's not too sticky. So basically I'm going to add a little bit more flour as needed just to make sure it pulls away from the side of the bowl. So I recommend starting to mix this on the lowest setting. It smells good, the mixing. You can see it's already coming together into a dough. So I'm holding back the butter because when you add butter or another fat to a dough, it's a tenderizer, so it inhibits gluten formation. And I already have a little bit of fat in there from the sour cream and the butter that I used to cook the rosemary. So I'm holding back the remaining butter because I do want to develop a good amount of gluten, because it is that gluten development that is going to help get that like pull apart texture where when you like split open a roll, you get almost those little threads of that interior crumb. And I love that texture and I want that. So this is going to mix without the butter until I have a pretty cohesive dough, and then I'll add it little by little. So now we have a dough. It's not particularly smooth and it still has some unincorporated pieces of sweet potato. So I'm going to increase the speed a little bit. And I want to mix this until it pulls away from the sides of the bowl. If after maybe 5 minutes I don't see it pulling away, I'm going to add a little bit more flour, just a tablespoon at a time, until it starts to clear that bowl. So it's going to go up 1 notch on the mixer. The dough is a little sticky, so I'm going to add about a tablespoon of flour. And that's going to get incorporated. And then if after another few minutes of mixing, it's still not clearing the sides, I'll add another tablespoon or 2. So I actually made a swap of this dough last night. And when I was mixing it, I ended up adding 3 tablespoons of extra flour, just FYI. But it really depends on like your flour, the moisture content of the sweet potato, like how old is your flour, all that stuff. This way you add kind of just enough flour to bring the dough to the right consistency. I'm gonna add another little tablespoon. I added this time nearly 4 tablespoons of flour, so just know that that additional flour quantity is gonna change. And now I'm ready to add my butter. So I haven't really gone above that second speed on the mixer, so it's been going kind of low and slow for the last, I'd say, solid 10 minutes. I'm gonna add now 6 tablespoons of that room temperature butter in tablespoon sized pieces. So that means I'm gonna have 3 left over. 1 is gonna grease the pan, and then the 2 remaining tablespoons of butter are just gonna glaze the baked rolls. So this is similar if you've ever made brioche. This is the same kind of technique. I'm just adding in those butter pieces one at a time. And it's really gonna transform the texture of the dough. It's gonna become like super supple. It's gonna pull away even more from the sides. Vinny, if I give them a treat, you wanna give it to them? Make them shut up? No offense, cats. Archie isn't really good at licking it off the tube. Is he trying to bite it? Just squeeze it as they lick it, basically. Ready?
This is the most fun part of making brioche.
Yeah. Before I add that last piece of butter, I'm gonna just scrape everything down. The butter really does kind of like grease the dough, so it becomes a lot less sticky. So then the last tablespoon of butter goes in. And now I'm gonna continue to mix again for another few minutes, just until I have like a super smooth, supple, non-sticky dough. So this is done. So I'm gonna clean off the paddle. So I'm gonna get this out of the bowl. It's pretty soft, but it's not super sticky at this stage because of that butter that we've added. So I'm just gonna kind of form this into a sphere. So I have my clean bowl. I have my dough in a nice sort of round, tight sort of dome. I'm gonna get it into my bowl. And then this is gonna get covered. And there's a nice overnight option with this dough. I think with any kind of yeasted recipe, it's nice to do it like a long cold rest in the fridge. It improves flavor, it improves texture, and it kind of frees up your baking schedule. So I'm gonna cover this and let it rise at room temp until it's about 50% expanded in size. That'll take like about an hour depending on the temp of your kitchen. Then it's gonna go into the fridge. So at that point, you can let it chill anywhere between like 8 and 18 hours. You can let it go overnight, bake the next day. And I have a dough that I made last night and it's been chilling in the fridge, so I'm gonna bring that out and then show you how to form the rolls. Here's the dough that I made last night. You can see that it rose really, really beautifully. I'm gonna uncover it. Here I have my made-in stainless Clad saute pan. So it has these nice straight sides. This is what I'm gonna bake in. So what I wanna do as I form the rolls is put them one by one in the pan. So I'm gonna just smear a little bit of butter in the bottom and sides of the pan. One of those remaining tablespoons of butter, this is already room temp, so it's gonna work into the pan really, really easily. So now out onto my work surface. And when the dough is cold, it's even more workable. So that cold rise in the fridge allowed all of that flour to hydrate. That butter that's in there has chilled, so it's like a lot just easier to work with. So I'm gonna just punch this down and work it into a little bit of a square. And I'm going to use my bowl scraper to divide this into a 4x4 grid. So I'm gonna make 16 individual pieces. Some guidelines here. 4x4 is super easy. Okay, that looks good. If you wanna be super precise, you could weigh things out with a kitchen scale, but I don't think it really matters that much. So now I have my 16 portions, and I'm gonna take each one, and similar to that motion that I used to form the entire, like the full amount of dough into a ball, I'm going to do that to each individual piece of dough because I want them to rise really tall as they bake, not just out. So you get that effect by sort of stretching the dough over itself. So what I do is I kind of take, like they have sort of 4 edges now, I take them and I pinch them all together. So it's like kind of like a bulb of garlic, right, like that. And then it goes pinch side or seam side down on the work surface. I like make a kind of claw and a sort of cupping motion around the dough and like work it around the work surface, and it just kind of magically turns into this like super smooth dome. And then as you finish, you can put it into your skillet. So pinching all those edges together into one side have like a little teardrop shape. It goes seam side down, and it's like rapid little circles on your work surface. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that motion for all 16 pieces, get them all in my skillet, arranged kind of evenly spaced. Then that's gonna get covered. I'll probably just put a kitchen towel over it, and that's gonna rise at room temp until they are nearly doubled in size. It's the middle of the night. No, these rolls took a little while to rise. They have been rising for actually a little over an hour, but they look great. You can see that they've filled in all that negative space in between each little bun. If you oil your finger and then you poke into one, press, the dough should spring back, but leave a little bit of an indentation. The oven is preheated at 350. I am going to use that last remaining egg to brush these with a little egg wash. It's just gonna make the exterior super shiny and golden brown. So crack that. Gonna beat it with a fork. And then remember, I still have 2 tablespoons of butter left. I'm gonna brush that across the surface of the buns after they come out of the oven. So I have a pastry brush. You wanna just sort of have a relatively thin, even layer. That's really it. They're so close together that if you have a little bit of extra egg, it might pool and brown a little bit, but it's no big deal. These are ready to go. My oven is at 350. I'm gonna bake them until they're risen. They're gonna get even taller and bigger, and the surfaces are gonna be like dark golden brown all over and shiny. And I'm baking right in the made-in saute pan, which is oven safe up to 800 degrees. So I don't have anything to worry about there. And one thing I like about it is you can just bring the whole thing to the table and serve them that way. I think they'll take like between 20 and 25 minutes. So I just set my timer for 20 and then I'll check them. But usually you know that they're done because they're gonna smell like really, really good. You're gonna smell that rosemary. Okay, my timer just went off. I wanna take a look. They're smelling good. They might need a few more minutes in the oven. Oh, they need a few more minutes. They're not quite dark enough yet, but they look so good. I'm gonna set the timer for another 5. The timer went off. I can really smell that they're done, and also I looked. So they're like really golden brown on top. That's my timer. I'm gonna pull them out. I'm gonna bring them right back here so I can glaze them with my leftover butter. Pro tip, anytime you're baking in a saute pan or anything with a handle, leave a towel over it so you don't accidentally, it's so easy to like just grab it without thinking. They look so good. I love the color. They have that like bright sort of orange undertone, and I see the little flecks of rosemary. They look and smell so good. They got super tall, which I love. And now I'm just gonna give them like a final glaze with that remaining butter, which has been sitting out all day. I'm excited to use it. It's like a tumbleweed, butter tumbleweed. They are so shiny and like so fluffy looking, and they look so good, but they're also really, really hot. So you have to let them cool a little bit. Sorry, we've been here for a while. It's been a long day. Time management is not my strong suit. So I'm working on it constantly. I have poor time management sometimes. So do you though, so we don't help each other. Because I'm bad at it, I recognize that you're bad at it. Point is, we still have to wait. We'll come back and taste these soon. Sorry. It's true.
Isn't there some kind of movie magic? You gotta make them wait an hour to film the next.
Movie magic is editing. I'm actually very hungry. Like, it just hit me. I'm just gonna eat it straight from the pan, so I'm gonna use my little offset to help me pull it apart. They've cooled, as you can see, like they're still warm, and they lost a little bit of volume because all that steam was coming off. So they kind of pulled away from the sides. Makes it a little bit easier to separate off one of the rolls. Oh my gosh, so fluffy. Look at the crumb. It's so tender also, and like look at what pulls off of the side of the bun, the one next to it. That's that kind of like thready, bready pull apart texture. Eat this. I'm gonna just pull it apart. I'm gonna taste from the top first. So light and fluffy. It's like kind of weightless. Ready? Can I taste it? You know what? They need a little salt. You're gonna tell me why they need salt. No, go away. No offense. Okay.
Yeah, it needs salt.
Do you get the rosemary?
Delicious.
I think this is the kind of thing that if you served at Thanksgiving, this is going to disappear first. Hopefully you have some left over because they'll make such good next day turkey sandwiches. They're so good. The sweet potato isn't as much contributing flavor as it is like color and texture. They're just so soft and pillowy and super light, but then you get that like buttery rosemary flavor. Really good. If you wanted to, you could do this with sage. You could do it with thyme. You could do a mix of herbs. It's really up to you. Insanely good. I also feel like I get a little tang from the sour cream, which I really like.
When you did the egg base, would you have sprinkled a little salt on top?
Yeah, after you egg wash, you can hit it with a little salt or just maybe add a couple of extra pinches to the dough. So good. I think this would be a great side dish to bring to someone else's house if you're not hosting Thanksgiving. Super easy to transport. You can pick it up, like bring it to the person's house. You could reheat them in the oven, like leave them in the skillet. I feel like this is such a home run Thanksgiving side. And if you want to, you could also substitute a regular potato for like a russet potato for the sweet potato. And then you have something a little bit more neutral. But overall, so good. I know I'm cheating a little bit because they're warm, but they'll be good cold, I guarantee. I want to thank our partners at Made In for sponsoring this episode. Check the link in the description below. And happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. And cut.